Okay, good evening and welcome to the Millbrae City Council meeting of February 25th, 2020. Can we have the roll call, please?
All council members are present.
Okay, would you please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so to begin the meeting, we have a proclamation of April 1st, 2020 as Census Day. As I'm sure everyone knows, every 10 years we take the census, and we have reached that milestone again in the year 2020. And the census period begins on April 1st, so please, everybody, make sure you submit your census. Whereas pursuant to United States Constitution, every 10 years, the federal government is required to count all residents in the United States, citizens and non-citizens, through a national census. And whereas the next national census is scheduled to begin in April 2020, is central to our democracy, and whereas a primary and perpetual challenge facing the U.S. Census Bureau is the undercount of certain population groups, and whereas California has a large percentage of individuals that are considered traditionally hard to count, and whereas the data that is collected by the decennial census determines the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives and is used to distribute billions of dollars in federal funds to state and local governments. Whereas the data is also used in the redistricting of state legislatures, county boards of supervisors, and city councils. And whereas California receives nearly $77 billion in federal funding that is allocated in part based on census data. And whereas a complete and accurate count of California's population is essential. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim April 1st, 2020 as Census Day in the city of Millbrae and encourage Millbrae residents to promote and complete the census to ensure a fair, accurate, and complete count. And I know we are working with, the county has a census office that has been working throughout the county to provide resources and make sure that we reach as many members as possible. It's very important. A lot of our city funding, both federally and from the state, is based on population and per capita population. And if we are not fully counted, then we do not receive our fair share of funding. So please go forward and fill out the census and be counted. Oh, yes, Councilman Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just also want to point out there is no citizen question on the census. There are people and organizations that wants to dissuade people from doing the census, and that would be a tragedy for Millbrae because that money determines on not only services, how much money we get for services, how much we get for fire, police, roads, schools, special services for people, programs, but also the data is also used for many other things and how we can reach certain populations in our city too. So it's critically, the data is secure. It's not to be shared by other agencies except for the census, and the data that is sent out is all sanitized, meaning it has no personal information. So you don't have any fear that that data is going to go elsewhere than the census. But people would like you to believe that. So please, for your own community, for your own network, for your own neighborhood, for yourself, please participate in the census.
Vice Mayor Schneider?
I would only support Councilman Lee in saying that if you have a question, if you are concerned, call City Hall. Come and talk to us. Don't read something on the newspaper. Don't read something online on that. There is a great deal of misinformation out there, but please know that what we're going to put out there is going to be the truth, and call us.
And they will, and people who don't, the census is only going to be online in English and Spanish only. If you need help in other languages, you can go to the library. starting on March 12th, and there will be people there to help you fill out the census.
All right, next we have the agenda overview and staff briefing, and we have City Manager Tom Williams for that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Tom Williams, City Manager. So I would like to just first brief the council before I go over the agenda this evening. A couple of points of note for the general public. There's been a rash of burglaries up and down San Mateo County, mostly on the 280 corridor. And working with the chief, we'd like to just let people know that if you see something, say something, and please call 911 immediately to report any suspicious behavior. And a few techniques for the public: try not to leave valuables in plain sight, secure and lock all windows and doors, and if you're heading out of town, you can contact the Sheriff's Department, and we will send deputies out to do vacation home checks. Also, if anyone knows of any burglary or theft that's not in progress, the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office would still like to know, and you can contact them at the non-emergency line at 650-363-4911. This information is also on our website. Also, coming up, we have the Millbrae Fix-It Clinic on March 21st. You can join us for free hands on a Fix-It Clinic workshop Saturday, March 21st at the library. Coaches will help attendees troubleshoot and fix their broken household items such as electronics, appliances, computer toys, plumbing, bicycle. And the clinic starts at 12 noon, again, at the Millbrae Library, coming up on March 21st. Also in the works is the annual Millbrae Art Show. This will be the second consecutive year of the art show. So any interested artists that would like to submit, you can get information on our website and through the Cultural Arts Advisory Commission. And so we're encouraging all local artists to participate and submit their work. Also, coming up on Tuesday, March 3rd, is Super Tuesday, where Californians head to the polls, and we just wanted to let people know there are 3 ways to vote. One is vote by mail. As people may know, voters can mail their postage-paid return envelope on or before Election Day, which again is March 3rd. The second way is to drop off your ballot here at City Hall. There are voting boxes in the lobby, and the lobby is open from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. every evening. And the third is vote in person. Millbrae voters can vote in person at the Millbrae Voting Center by using a ballot marking tablet or a paper ballot, and the voting center is located here at City Hall, actually 623 Magnolia, and will be open for 4 days beginning February 29th through March 3rd. And then if anyone needs more information, they can visit the San Mateo County voting website and get more information. That's www.smcvote.org. And then also, I'd like to bring to the council's attention and the public that in terms of continuing transparency and record keeping, the city has undertaken several strategic initiatives to make information more accessible. And I'd like to compliment our city clerk and the staff for actually, and we have a video here that kind of spells everything out that we'd like to show about 3.5 minutes, but our record keeping and access to the portals for real-time information. So if we can run the video for information, we can start that now.
Over the past 5 years, the City of Millbrae has undertaken several strategic initiatives to make City Hall more transparent and open to local residents. Another step towards transparency has been achieved with the release of the city's public portal on its website. Through the public portal, you can search and review digital copies of public records, including City Council meeting minutes, staff reports, and resolutions. This quick video tutorial will show you in a few easy steps how to take advantage of this new transparency tool. To begin your journey to Millbrae's public portal, visit the city's website at ci.millbrae.ca.us. From the main page of the city's website, click the link in the lower right-hand corner for public records and information. On this page, you will find a direct link to the Millbrae Public Portal. Click Visit City of Millbrae Public Records to search our Public Records Database portal. Now you've reached the landing page of the new Public Records portal. There are a few options here. To start, we'll do a practice search in the search field. Simply click in the field that reads Search in Public Portal and type in your keyword search. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll be searching for information on the multi-unit smoking ordinance in Millbrae. Click the green magnifying glass icon. You'll be given several results sorted by relevance to your keyword search. Here, our search has returned a legislative document from the City Council meeting of July 9th, 2019. This is a staff report pertaining to the multi-unit smoking ordinance. Select the item to open the online PDF viewer. You can scroll through the pages of the report, or simply select the pages on the left-hand column. You can also type in the page number to navigate directly to the page you wish to view. Other features of this PDF viewer are that you can print the pages or download them to your computer. Now, let's return to the public portal homepage to try another type of search. Below the search field that we used previously, you'll see options to search General City Clerk records, legislative documents, and agreements. Let's search agreements. For this demo, we'll search a vendor name. How about the City and County of San Francisco? Click Submit when you're finished typing. Our first return for the search of agreements with the City and County of San Francisco is a water supply agreement dated July 19, 2019. As you can see, this document will also display in the online PDF viewer. You can use this viewer to scroll through pages or to navigate directly to pages if you know where you're going. You can also print and download the document directly to your desktop. We hope that this tutorial has been a useful way to get you started with the new Milbrae Public Portal and increase transparency in government in your city.
So again, Mayor, Council, I'd like to thank Elena and her team for putting this together and continuing to build our access to public information and our record keeping. So thank you. And then lastly, I'm proud to introduce Ms. Emily Boyd, our interim finance director here in the back. Emily comes with many, many years of experience. She's a retired finance director, was finance director in the city of Crescent City, town of Moraga, and the city of Galt. And so already she's come on board and has done a phenomenal job in helping us start the budget preparation and picking up where Deanna's left off. So please welcome Emily Boyd that's here to help us out as we go through a recruitment for a full-time finance director. And that concludes the city manager report this evening. And moving to the agenda, a calendar of events, reports of bills and claims, and I think the city attorney has a report out from closed session. I'll refer it to Mike.
Good evening. The council prior to this meeting met in closed session on two items. For the first item involving city-owned parcels at the BART station, there was no reportable action taken. In the second item regarding the city-owned parcel, APN 024174330, the city corporation yard, the city gave instructions to its negotiators.
Then moving on to item number 3 on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes. There's 2 meeting minutes, one for January 28, 2020, also for February 11, 2020. Item number 4, there are no oral reports from city committees or commissions this evening. Then we move to public comment, and that's an opportunity for anybody from the public to speak to the council for 3 minutes on any item not on the agenda. After that, we move to the consent calendar. Item number 5 is to consider a resolution ratifying contract change order number 4 to the agreement with Interstate Grading and Paving for a total contract cost of $545,233 and accepting the Taylor Middle School Safe Route to School and Green Infrastructure Pilot Project as complete and filing the notice of completion. That's the only item on the consent calendar this evening. There are no public hearings. Item number 6 under existing business is an informational update on the Millbrae Recreation Center project. That's an information item. And then the last item on the agenda under new business, item number 7 is an informational report on the draft climate action plan. Then we move to city council comments and adjournment.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have the approval of minutes, and we have January 28th, 2020, as well as February 11th, 2020 meetings. We'll take them as one action. We have a motion from Councilman Lee and a second from Councilwoman Pappen. Your votes, please.
The minutes passed unanimously.
All right. Next on the agenda is public communication. This is the opportunity for any member of the public to speak on any item that is not on this evening's agenda. We have a speaker slip from Ron Raquel.
Hi, good evening, City Council. I just wanted to bring to your attention the intersection of Magnolia and Millbrae Avenue in the northbound and southbound direction. In the last year, I've almost been hit 10 times crossing in either direction when I've had the right-of-way, and I've brought it up to Ruben. I called him up sometime last November, and I emailed him, and I've also brought it to the attention of Tom Williams when he visited my house for some other business. Last week, unfortunately, there was an accident in the daylight at around 12:30, and it was between an Uber driver and a other vehicle. And I've mentioned that it is a really bad intersection just for pedestrians and automobiles. I've always advocated that there should be a controlled turn light. You have it in the east-west direction, and there is a lot of traffic in the northbound and southbound direction, and it is really inane why it hasn't been brought up to the City Council before. It is just a fatality in the making there. I've been pancaked close to 8-10 times during the night or daytime. And the last incident was at night, and the guy inched out trying to make a left turn heading towards El Camino. And he inched out. He had his turn signal. I had a right-of-way. And he decided to inch out, and all of a sudden he jetted out. And I had to go back because I know if I walked any further, I would have been pancaked. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's had this incident. It is just a really bad intersection for cars and automobiles. And I brought it to the attention to the Public Works. Andy's doing a time study, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that public safety should be of utmost importance, and I should not have to fear for my life trying to walk across the crosswalk in either direction. It's just inane. I have to look back, forwards, in every direction. I understand people are busy and trying to get to their destination, but the guy that I almost had the encounter with, it was nighttime and it was 10 o'clock. And I mean, this is ridiculous. And I shouldn't have to fear for my life, and I'm sure I'm not the only resident there, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I feel that it is of utmost importance for someone to feel safe to cross an intersection when they have the right of way. And there's no reason for them not to give you the right of way. I don't care how fast you need to get to location. It's just total negligence, and I know the city is doing a time study because I brought it up to Andy and also Key on that incident, but I've always advocated, you already have the turn lane there. All you need to do is add a light so nothing happens there, and that's my major concern. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I mean, no one should have to fear for their life crossing when they have the right of way. And
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
sure the
Rickle.
city doesn't want to have fatality on their watch there, either car or vehicle. And thanks for your time.
Yeah,
I
thank you,
appreciate it.
Mr. Raquel, and I'm sure we will be getting back shortly with the time study, and that is an excellent suggestion. Okay, next, seeing no other speakers, public comment is closed. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have only one item, item number 5. We have a motion from Councilwoman Pappen and a second from Vice Mayor Schneider. Your votes, please. Oh, sorry? Okay.
Anything was after this issue?
Oh.
Item number 5 passed unanimously.
Sorry, Vice Mayor, did you have a comment?
First of all, I think it looks fantastic, and I know I was told by staff that we haven't had our sort of public celebration yet because we were waiting for the plants coming in. And I went by it today. I'm just wondering when we're going to have a celebration so we can start educating the people about what green infrastructure is.
So, Mayor, Council, we'll get back to you on a date, an unveiling or a ribbon cutting. So we don't have one, so
Okay.
We'll work on it and get back to you.
It looks great, though. There's one little section that's missing some plants, a little farther up on Laurel. But anyway, this is an exciting program and something we're going to be talking about for Climate Action Plan.
Okay, thank you. So next on the agenda is item number 6. This is an informational update on the Millbrae Recreation Center restoration project. And we have, looks like Jane Cow and Key Lim to give the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. I'm Jane Cow of the Public Works Department. I'm here to give an update on the Millbrae Recreation Center project. So since my last update in January, we have issued the request for qualification on February 7th, and the following week, we held a pre-qualification conference on February 13th at the Chambers here. The conference included a presentation as well as answer and question session and a site visit. There were representatives from 12 different firms, 5 contractors, and 7 design firms. The next step of this RFQ process is to receive the submittals on the request for qualification, and that's due back on March 5th. We did extend that by 1 week from the original date to allow for additional outreach, but this did not affect our overall schedule for the project.
You want to change your slide?
Oh, sorry. Yes. There you go. Thank you. And then on February 14th, we held a subcommittee meeting where we discussed cost savings opportunities, and the goal is to reduce the construction cost by $3 million, and that would keep the project budget total to $30 million. With the subcommittee's input, staff is working on a final recommendation on the list of cost savings opportunities, which will be presented to the subcommittee in March. Some of the other concurrent efforts that we're working on is the request for proposal, the project labor agreement, which we now have a draft, and so next step would be going to engage the San Mateo trade councils. We are also updating the city website and also planning fundraising efforts. So this schedule, next step schedule, is actually the same one I presented last month. It's exactly the same because we're still on track. The RFQ process will run until March. We will select 3 design-build entity the week of March 9th. That's planned. And then the request for proposal phase will start in April and end in June with we'll come back to council July for the award of the design-build contract. And construction is still 18 months. It will run till the end of 2021 with soft opening March 2022. This concludes my update. Any questions?
Any questions? Yes, Vice Mayor?
I know it's a little too early to tell, but because the public keeps asking me, roughly, if everything goes according to plan, when would ground break?
I would say late summer.
Does late summer mean August or September?
October.
I would say August, September. Just
okay. And as you heard me before, if we can start identifying FF&E costs so that the community groups can begin fundraising, it's going to take a while to make all that.
And so council members can begin fundraising as well, right?
Yeah, some of us promised to go look shopping for $800,000, but I have a plan. I just don't want to announce it publicly. But I'd like to know the numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all we have for you tonight. You got off easy. All right. Next on the agenda is under new business item number 7, informational report on the draft climate action plan. And we have Shelley Ryder here for the presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm really pleased to present an informational report on the draft climate action plan. The presentation will cover what a climate action plan is, which I'll refer to as a CAP mostly, the baseline greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets, some of the strategies for reducing emissions. I'll provide an overview of some of the larger measures included in the CAP, as well as the next steps. The challenge of climate change is unprecedented. The Earth's climate system is being destabilized in response to elevated levels of greenhouse gases, primarily due to the combustion of fossil fuels due to energy use. These greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and 3 human-made gases, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride. Climate change refers to all aspects of climate, including disruptions to weather patterns, including shrinking glaciers, accelerated sea level rise, more intense heat waves, shifts in animal and plant ranges, as well as changes in the timing of plant reproduction. Climate change is affecting land and water resources, transportation, as well as human health and welfare across the United States and around the world. Over the past 50 years, California, and especially Western North America and other areas, have experienced warmer winter and spring temperatures, reduced snowpack levels and earlier spring, as well as increased wildfires. And this also is being experienced around the world. Sea level in the Bay Area has risen approximately 8 inches over the last 100 years, and California state projections show sea level rising 14 inches by 2050 and 40 to 55 inches by 2100. Avoiding the most severe climate outcomes will require preventing average global temperature from rising more than 2 degrees Celsius, and that's relative to pre-industrial levels. The goal is to limit the warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, and this is what has been agreed upon and ratified at the 2016 Paris Agreement. Atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide need to peak below 400 to 450 parts per million and stabilize in the long term to around today's levels. In 2018, the global atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide passed 407 million parts per million, and that's why there is such a sense of urgency, and we're hearing about climate change nearly every day in the news. Global greenhouse gas emissions will need to be reduced by at least 45% below 2010 levels by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. So why do a climate action plan? A climate action plan provides local level solutions to reduce emissions, improve energy efficiencies, promote economic development, and improve the overall quality of life. By adopting a climate action plan, the city is committing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The city has had a long-standing commitment to and implementation of environmental programs. As background, the city's environmental programs and other city activities have helped to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as participating in the Peninsula Clean Energy Program and opting for 100% renewable energy for municipal operations. Also, installing and expanding our electric vehicle infrastructure, participating in Peninsula SunShares program, and implementing the 2012 Clean Energy Project, amongst other projects. The environmental programs focus on reducing waste, conserving water, saving energy, and preventing water pollution for all of our sectors, for our residents, for our businesses, for our schools, and our city facilities. The cornerstones of the environmental programs being outreach, education, and hands-on assistance, as well as leading by example. Also, as background, in 2007, the City Council at that time passed 2 climate protection resolutions. One, the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, part of the Cool Cities campaign, and the other, the ICLEI Cities for Climate Protection campaign. In 2009, the City Council adopted greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets of 15% below 2005 levels by 2020 and 80% below 2005 levels by 2050. The city has been recognized by the Institute for Local Governments through their Beacon Award and won several awards in 2015 and 2016, and the city will be eligible for additional awards this fall. A draft climate action plan was established to establish policies, set targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and outline measures to meet these reduction targets. The original intent was to adopt the climate action plan along with the general plan to optimize on outreach as well as environmental reporting and funding. Staff is now recommending to move ahead with the climate action plan ahead of the general plan, yet the policies within the climate action plan will still be included in the general plan, and the climate action plan would be an appendices within the general plan. Staff has been working with the County of San Mateo, the Office of Sustainability, which administers the RICAPS program, and that stands for the Regionally Integrated Climate Action Planning Suite, which is in collaboration with and funded by CCAG. And I really want to do a shout out to the county, as they have provided tremendous support over the years, both in helping with the climate action plan itself, as well as calculating our greenhouse gas emissions inventories. To date, they've calculated up to 2015, which this climate action plan is based on, and they're finalizing the 2016 and 2017 inventories. Preliminary results show that the city has reduced greenhouse gases by 20% for 2017, but we are waiting for the final results, and we will share those once we have those results. 2005 is the base year in which all inventories are compared to. This shows our baseline greenhouse gas emissions. Once again, it's 2005, and the 4 largest sectors being transportation, which comprises over 50% of our greenhouse gas emissions, the rest, the next majority being in residential and commercial energy use. The draft climate action plan sets a new greenhouse gas emission reduction target of 49% below 2005 levels by 2030. This is in line with SB 32, with an interim target of reducing by 32% below 2005 levels by 2025. The CAP includes a prioritized list of actions with a mix of voluntary strategies and mandatory policies. Many of these strategies are in place, and others are newly proposed. We will build on our existing programs, and there are a total of 42 measures included in the Climate Action Plan, 24 of these being existing, some that we'll build on, and 18 new measures. Several emission reductions will come from state and county building and transportation strategies. The Climate Action Plan, just as an outline, includes a background on climate change, baseline inventory emissions, emission targets, local efforts, greenhouse gas reduction measures, implementation, and monitoring. It provides a roadmap for the city to reduce our greenhouse gases in various sectors. Within each of these sectors, there are measures for community as well as municipal. And the sectors being energy, which includes water conservation, transportation and land use, solid waste, and then the all sectors category, which is the Green Business Program, and that touches on all these other sectors. I wanted to provide a few examples of some of the measures that are included within the Climate Action Plan, starting with energy for residential and business. And it's starting a voluntary energy efficiency and water efficiency standard program at the time of a building sale and moving to a mandatory type of ordinance in the future. Also continuing to promote participation in residential and commercial energy efficiency programs such as San Mateo County Energy Watch, the Bay Run program, the Home Intel program that we promote, Energy Upgrade, and some of the other programs that we participate in. Also to leverage incentives provided by Peninsula Clean Energy to encourage the upgrade of electric panels to accommodate all electric technologies, to continue promoting rebates for water-efficient fixtures and devices, and to implement a residential tree planting program. Next is transportation and land use, and that would be expanding our electric vehicle infrastructure to promote the purchase of electric vehicles. And we will need a lot of electric vehicles out there being driven by people to reduce our emissions. And so this electric vehicle infrastructure would be encouraged at both public and private facilities. Next is to continue smart growth policies that prioritize infill, higher density, and transportation-oriented and mixed-use development. Also to create an energy-efficient fleet or a fleet policy for municipal operations, and to accommodate shared electric bikes and scooters to provide that last-mile solution so that we're getting people from their homes and business to our transportation hub. Next is solid waste, and that's to increase participation in recycling programs to increase the level of recyclables and organic waste to achieve 85% diversion, implementing a zero waste policy for city operations, revising the municipal administrative standard procedures for our environmental policy to strengthen the purchasing procedures, and next is the last category being all sectors, and I had mentioned that's the Green Business Program, and that allows businesses to brand themselves as green by implementing sustainable practices. Here in Millbrae, we have 6 certified green businesses, including City Hall and the library. The Climate Action Plan outlines a path to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in these various sectors from 2005 levels by 47% for energy emissions, 58% for transportation, and 90% for solid waste emissions. The Climate Action Plan is a living document that will be updated as new technologies and programs emerge. We will always have the opportunity to implement programs over the years and to update the CAP with new technologies as they emerge. I wanted to briefly touch upon adaptation. The measures in the Climate Action Plan help to reduce and stabilize the current greenhouse gases that we're experiencing right now, and this is considered a mitigation measure or effort. Climate adaptation involves taking actions to manage risks from climate impacts, such as from sea level rise, wildfires, extreme weather events, and to protect communities and strengthen the resilience of the economy. It's adapting to what already has been occurring and reducing the city's vulnerability. The city has taken action to assess sea level rise, and we've been implementing green infrastructure projects such that was mentioned earlier. The staff will continue to develop and implement adaptation strategies. Final, our next steps. The next step is to release the climate action plan in the next several days and to conduct broad public outreach from March through early June to obtain comments. We will have website postings, social media postings. We'll do notifications to our committees, commissions, and to others, and hold 2 public workshops. We will also present a similar presentation to the Planning Commission at their March 16th meeting and go back to seek a City Council recommendation at the April 20th meeting and obtain all comments by early June, by June 5th, so that we can fold that into a final draft cap to bring back to the City Council at the July 4th meeting and bring it back for adoption at the July 28th meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ryder. Obviously, a ton of work must have gone into this this document here. And as I was reading through it, the version I had didn't have the executive summary at the beginning. So I was kind of reading through and thinking, oh, these are a lot of great strategies and a good menu of options. Then you get to the end, and it's not pick 3 of these. It's all of the above to meet the emissions targets, which I think shows the the gravity of the situation and sobering in a sense as to how much investment is needed to meet these targets. And this is only the 2030 targets. It's not the 2050 targets, which are a whole nother set of objectives there. I did have one question before I get to other council members here, but you'd mentioned that the 2017 inventory is currently underway.
Yes, it should be done soon.
And that would not take into account the PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy impacts, which I think would be significant at this point to see, where we are now with PCE fully implemented countywide and how that impacts our current emissions.
Yes, it does impact it, and that's why a part of the reason that we will be somewhere around 20% reduced 2017 comparing to our base year of 2005. Peninsula Clean Energy is a large part of it. It's partly experienced in the 2016 inventory. In 2017 will be more fully realized, and reductions are also contributed to reduced energy consumption and transportation. So I'm hoping that we can include that at least as an appendices and get those final numbers. So I'm working with the county on that, and they're working with the CPUC to work out some of the natural gas numbers.
Okay, so we would then have some amendments as to the amount of greenhouse gas reductions that are going to be needed to meet the target, assuming we've already made some progress there since 2015.
Yes, absolutely. I think we should be able to do that. There'll be enough time to include it in some shape or form because it does make a difference. It would be nice to include that. At the end of the document, there is a little description of the inventory in 2016-17, but just like some of the highlights I mentioned.
And it would be great if we could apply to the Beacon program again this year, because it's been a few years. And
yeah.
My understanding is to get the award, you have to apply for it.
Yes.
And we had done that in the past, and we're honored, and it would be great to show that we're continuing to make progress. Okay. Any questions from the council?
I was going to let everybody go first. Okay, couple of overview questions.
Okay.
Gina, do you want to go? If we're looking at next steps, the Parks Master Plan went through many, many Park and Rec meetings on this. We have a committee that's supposed to and is assigned to work on environment, and they haven't seen this yet. So is the plan on public outreach to bring them to our committees and commissions first before full public public workshops on this?
It will happen before the first workshop. We would do sometime like in April. So as many, the outreach, the notifications I had mentioned will go out right away. Actually, Monday we will have notifications that go out to all the committees and commissions.
Okay, because many of them have had this on their work plan from the 4 years I've been on council, and this is the first time they will have gotten to see this. Now, I reached out to a couple on community enhancement, and they've already sent me back feedback on this. And we are very fortunate that of our community environmental Community Environmental Enhancement Committee, we have 2 young men who studied this in college, who were past presidents of the Green Youth Alliance at Mills High School, and we have a retired science teacher on there who's been dealing with CAP plans for many years and is on PCE's public outreach. So I want to make sure that our trained public have access before, like all EIRs, all their comments are fed in the back and not really looked at. So I'm a little concerned that they're not our first go-to group before it came this way.
The notification will go to all the committees and commissions, including the Community Enhancement Advisory Committee. Everyone will receive that and have the opportunity. And we are suggesting that the comments, come to myself so that I can compile them and fold that into the next version so I can keep track of those. So if anyone has any, we welcome those.
Okay. Looking at the sectors, I'm curious why institutions are not included. In the world that I work in the solid waste world, institutions are prisons, schools, generally prisons and schools. We don't have a prison, but we have schools. So when I read through both the full plan and the executive summary, there is nothing in schools. Now, you might explain to the public why schools aren't included, but they are a major component of what we do here in Millbrae.
The measures are overall in all the different categories, and so some of that will touch upon schools. Some of it is really focused on commercial and residential, and we do have the opportunity to work with schools, and schools being under the state, I imagine, have some of their plans as well.
Well, the reason I'm going to bring up schools, for example, the students at Mills come and tell me, Ann, we would love to be doing food waste, but because schools don't have to use the same garbage company that we have, they don't qualify for the same programs. So they are not doing food scrap recycling, which is a major generator of methane. So we really do. No, the school districts are exempt from having to comply with local government laws, just like prisons are exempt. This is going back 30 years now, how prisons can often be a major generator for a community, Pelican Bay being the main example. So if you've got one of the 2 high schools within our area not really participating in zero waste programming, now maybe that's only 2%. If I read the report, 2% is attributed to waste, but it's a thing that our students want to do and can't do. And I also didn't see, we talk about MFDs, but we have no hooks. We have nothing in there. The one hook that works really well for solid waste is you pay less if you recycle more. You pay less if you compost. If these programs all use that same tool for implementation, if it had that monetary tool, we would be getting more action. When I read through the various activities, some of these are education, great. But how do we know that the education's actually working? Which is another one of my comments. For this, I don't have the data. Now, as a former staffer, I had to report out annually on data. Not just, we did education programs and we did 2 workshops, but what happened because we did 2 workshops? What happened because we held a compost giveaway? What are the actual real measurements on there? So I'd like to see institutions on here, even if we have no control. But we need to bring the schools in on this for so many reasons on that. My other, switching completely, reading through the transportation areas, thank you, it was really clear once I read through the whole section that we are credited, and this is a negative credit, we are credited with the generation of carbon for everybody who drives to us to the train station, correct?
What we have within the CAP are all the emissions that are within our boundaries, which does include the 2 freeways, and that's where the state's measures will help us reduce.
And the bulk because it is out of through them. And yet, somewhere, this is going to come down to us as a monetary line. We are going to have to come up with city money to implement real programs to truly reduce carbon. And yet, these are not. They're really not ours. They're just passing through us. Is there anything we can do to at least beef that up in the plan and say, we're attributed with this, but it isn't, we have no control over it, and we have no revenue stream to take care of it? everything when you read in this, there's a dollar amount attached to it. And when we just kind of brush over it, that's how we keep not having the money to do it. And maybe I'm not making it clear, and I'll try to make it clearer in I have sort of copious notes on page after page on this. I would like to see the actions broken down by education, by actual real things. Planting trees, real thing. Educating people to buy a solar car, great. In fact, I heard back from SEAC that they want more of that, but harder to measure unless we're actually counting how many Millbrae residents go out and buy an electric vehicle. Are we measuring that?
County is.
Yeah, and the programs through Peninsula Clean Energy, through their programs.
Kind of. I will tell you at the retreat, they talked about, are the incentives actually encouraging more people to buy electric vehicles, or are they only giving money to people who are going to buy the electric vehicle anyway? And that was one of the debates at the strategic plan. If you really wanted to help, you're going to get electric vehicles to people who are in the lower income categories who need the help to purchase electric vehicles. So the plan has lots of stuff in it, but it's the devil's in the detail on that. And that was my question to you, City Manager, yesterday when I said, just how detailed are we prepared to go tonight? Because this may not be the best forum for that.
Can I ask for a clarification?
Yes.
You mind? Mm-hmm. Okay, I thought we were just supposed to have an initial plan here to build on. A lot of the programs Vice Mayor Schneider has presented here are at the state level. So the county, I do have the numbers for the number of electric vehicles within our county. I think we might be overburdening city staff to say, hey, you need to count all this stuff. I went to a compost program, and I got the benefit through the county of getting a composting thing. So I think we might be overreaching in that by having this plan and doing some of these programs, we then get the county funding. I don't think the city of Millbrae actually has that kind of funding set aside because we deal with the sustainable county programs which benefit us. So I'm wondering if that clarifies things a little bit more. I'm asking a question, so I don't really know.
If I may suggest something, table 25 would be a good table for you to take a look at and then suggest any additions
what page
that we can include. Page 86.
It's the full listing of all of the measures.
Of all the actions, yeah. So I would
at the end of the executive summary as well.
I would take a look at that and then add anything that you would read as a proposal to incorporate into the plan.
If I can throw out a premise, on my free time, I have been looking at the way the county and its various entities gives out grants. You can look at Safe Routes to School as an example. So at the last county BPAC, we talked about all of the schools that received county money to help implement this program. Millbrae doesn't qualify. We're not low income enough. We don't have enough kids on supported lunch. And over, there are county programs where we don't qualify. City Clerk Suazo sent out an email today talking about some transportation support items, and it's for employees with more than 300 employees. We don't have many of those businesses. So I would love to think that you can count on the state, and I would love to think that you can count on the county, but I will tell you for a fact with bicycle pedestrian grants that the bulk of that money goes to the bigger cities who, if you are reading the paper right now, all have budget surpluses, and not to the cities that don't have a budget surplus. I think we really have to keep an eye on our own finances to be able to do this stuff. On top of that, of course, mine is going to be trees, if we were talking about this, because trees serve multiple purposes. And you mentioned it's mentioned in here. But it's kind of all over. So my other thing would be a lens by how do we prioritize? And I think the mayor said that. Which of the three do we choose? What's the most important? Can I ask for clarification again? So,
yes.
So on the safe routes to school,
City of Millbrae is listed, but we
City of
don't get
Milbrae is
any money.
listed. Well, I think part of the problem was that the city schools did not participate in the questionnaire as well.
No, I actually asked that question, Gina. I asked specifically at the last BPAC, why isn't Millbrae there? And when we, as government
I
people
just
talk
said,
equity-
I suspect.
No, I asked. I got it clarified.
I don't understand what you asked.
I asked why Millbrae wasn't listed on the next page.
I'm sorry, can we try to stay focused here? Because, I'm looking at some of these safe routes to school is 50, what's the unit? 50 tons of carbon dioxide out of 92,000 that we need to reduce. Solid waste is 2%, trees are 20. So
Yeah,
maybe if
let me
we could
just-
try to stay focused on some of the bigger items that will
Except-
make a dent here.
But see, this is the lens that you use. I live on a street that people drive every day, twice a day, to take their kids to school. And in the old days, when I grew up here, we either had a bus or we walked. Safe routes to schools gets people out of their cars. Not only that, it creates a lifetime learning process that they don't become dependent on their cars. So no one project is simply that one project. It's the education that goes along with it and the habits that are developed because of that. Now, I've been in the field 35 plus years, so for me it's common. But for other people, they may not make those connections. So I hear what you're saying, but it's not that simple. It's how many cars on Palm and Poplar that get hit by those parents driving their kids to school. It's the intersection at Magnolia and Millbrae Avenue for people driving too much. That's all safe routes to school.
I understand it's important. It's not what's going to get us to 45% emissions by 2030.
And neither is reliant on
I wish it did. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Clerk, Mayor?
Yeah, yes.
So one of the things you hit on was upgrade electric technology like panels and stuff. Do we have a joint partnership program with somebody that helps with that? I mean, within the homes and stuff, because I know in my area you can only upgrade so much before you have to break into the street. So if we're I can't get into the details now, that's too much, but are we headed in that direction to assist residents?
That is a program that Peninsula Clean Energy will be offering.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, yes, Councilman Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, thank you very much for this climate action plan, draft plan. It's very thorough, and I can see there's thousands of hours of work in this project. I like it's a good blueprint map to go. I understand that we can't go into the weeds today or tonight, but it's a good roadmap to start off with. I like the incentive programs to rather than being draconian and requiring a lot of reductions, that we try to incentivize people to do so. And in fact, I just heard on NPR News this morning on forum about children having anxiety about how to deal with climate change. So, that's how we deal with this. I think children are very much aware of what's happening to the planet and want to see and worried about their own future. So we definitely want to give impression. We want to show that they can participate, and we also have a plan. So I really appreciate this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to compliment you on the plan as well, and I know this is a ton of work. But I would like to also comment to regards to the mayor and the vice mayor, and I think that in terms of both looking at the helicopter vision and also the things we can do, like safe routes to for schools and EV charging and shuttles. Those are kind of the things that we can accomplish, and we can't make maybe a huge dent to where we need to be, and I think that's really important, and we need to look at the county and the state for reliance on incentives. Yet there are so many things we can do and we can accomplish. So I think that together the both visions could be well taken for this plan.
Thank you.
Yes, Vice Mayor Schneider.
Okay, one thing in particular, looking at the commercial sector, there were several programs like electrification of buildings or solar panels on buildings, and it says voluntary 2020, mandatory 2025. We're going to have a number of projects. There's the new hotel behind the A-Loft. There is the El Rancho project. There's the Burger King project. If we use the voluntary, although maybe we can get solar panels as a community benefit, I'm concerned that we are not moving right now, that any new construction right now has solar panels on it. So it's distributive generation, it's power right here. It makes us more resilient should we ever be affected by power shutoffs by PG&E. So some things I can understand. I read through it and I read through it again saying, yeah, you want to give the public a chance to absorb this. But I am still concerned that we approved the Chevron remodel and they're putting electric charging stations that are going to be running on whatever power source they choose and not solar panels on that Chevron gas station at the gateway to Millbrae. So I think we need to really look at voluntary versus mandatory on some of these, and how that ties into developer fees, I'm not sure, but that was the one that struck me. I can think of 4 projects right now that, gosh, if they come to us or when they go to Planning Commission, they should have solar panels on the top. The BART parking lot on the 5th floor should have solar panels up there now, not 5 years from now, not 10 years from now, now.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And, the Vice Mayor recently pointed out to me that TOD1 and TOD2 do not, in their current iterations, have solar panels.
And what's funny, because if you are planning a project near a transit-oriented development, you can sometimes ignore some of these climate change ordinances, like mandatory solar, which makes no sense at all when we are in, 420 parts per million, well beyond 350 parts per million?
Well, those projects have not yet been built. They do not yet have building permits, and I think it's worth at least reaching out to those developers and saying, look, can they incorporate solar in some way into their project? And if they don't, then they're going to be looked at as the ones that are continuing to increase emissions rather than reduce them. So I think just because it wasn't required at the time when the developments were approved doesn't mean that they don't have to do it. Councilman Lee?
I forgot to ask, is REACH codes kind of like sprinkled all over this plan? So REACH, can you explain what a REACH code is?
Yeah, the REACH codes is something that other cities in the county are looking at to reduce and actually eliminate the use of natural gas for electricity, because we can use renewable energy for it. Right now within the plan, it includes the Cal Green Code, and looking at the REACH codes, that's a decision that would have to be made.
It's more than just that, though, isn't it? It's like
there's different ways to go about it, but Peninsula Clean Energy has outlined basically a template for cities that are interested in going to all electrification. There are some cities that are allowing some mixed fuels and allowing natural gas, so there are different ways to implement a REACH code. Right now, we do basically default to the Cal Green Code, which is increasingly more stringent and working towards zero net energy as well.
Yes, Councilman, that was an excellent point, and I think we should be moving forward sooner rather than later with REACH codes. The only problem is that those are for new construction, and they do not take into account the city that's already built out as it is. So that is going to be the challenge. Phasing out natural gas isn't so much going to be with new buildings; it's going to be with the existing building stock, and how do we convert those to all electric. And it was mentioned in the report, panel upgrades, and PCE, I guess, is having some incentives for panel upgrades. So the estimates that I've seen, and full disclosure, I'm working on a project related to this in San Francisco. They're anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 to some estimates I've seen are $10,000 to $15,000 just for a single family home, not for a larger commercial building. So at some point, hard choices are going to have to be made, and if we are serious about meeting this target, and who's going to pay, and how do we at what point is it an incentive, and at what point is it some type of a mandate? And I think maybe that should be ironed out a little bit more, I think, in the final report. Yes, Vice Mayor Schneider?
One of the ways to help balance those additional costs is to really, truly put a fast-track permitting process in, because the money they save in the permitting process helps cover some of that. But if you look at what Redwood City right now for their REACH code discussion has more exemptions than some of the other cities I've been talking to. And I know that our restaurants have talked about, well, especially our Asian restaurants want to cook with gas. You cook on a wok with gas. But they also told me that they would love to make the rest of the restaurant electric, and they need our help to help the landlords upgrade the buildings. And I think then the process is, as soon as they come in for one little permit change, we catch them with everything else. I shouldn't possibly have used that word, but we help them upgrade up to everything else. But there are now enough cities in San Mateo County that have been going through the REACH code that we can learn quickly from them.
Well, I think it's only a matter of time before the REACH code becomes the base code, and it's going to be state law, I think, pretty soon, I would imagine, but I think we need to get on that.
But I would also add, too, that reducing natural gas pipelines running through the city or running through our homes, should we ever have wildfires, will be a benefit there, too.
All right, Councilman Pappen, you had a question?
Yeah.
We also have a speaker slip for this item.
Okay, great. So I think you covered part of that, and thank you. It's nice to get something in print here that we can move off of and grow off of, so thank you very much. So those were the state solar codes that we can incorporate in the future. Is that...
Well, right now the state requires for new developments is for small tracts, like 10 homes or more. There are, other options to look at. Included in here is looking at making mandatory for commercial.
Okay. I would like to say, too, yesterday's CMAC meeting, and I talked to the city manager here, that looks like we will be joining the streetlights data program that the county is going to be offering up, and that will give us additional information on the movements throughout our city and where people are going. It's phone-oriented, and an amazing amount of data that we will have access to help us through this process. People coming and going, whether they're walking, they're riding. It was an amazing program they presented yesterday, and having talked to the city manager, Millbrae is going to be a part of that. And the more cities that get involved, the cheaper it gets. So that this will help us, and looking forward to getting that exact information so we can see a lot of which directions we need to go in and what the impacts are of these stations and freeways and stuff. So I think that'll be helpful.
Okay, we have a speaker slip from Nathan Chan. Sorry for the wait.
Sorry. Hi, City Council of Millbrae. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak on this very important issue. Just overall, my thoughts on this climate action plan are that this is something that Millbrae can and should be very proud of. It's significantly more detailed and addresses a lot more possible mitigation strategies than even some of the bigger cities. I know for myself, something that I've seen, that people I know have seen that's deficient about, say, San Francisco's climate action plan is that there is no mention of land use or smart growth at all in their climate action plan, and it is front and center in Millbrae's climate action plan, which I think is great. There are three things that I wanted to talk about, which were about the emissions counting, the idea of returning to REACH codes, and also the question of mandates versus incentives. In terms of the emissions counting, so this report, it seems, looks into emissions mostly at a local level. In fact, that's what the previous presenter had just said. However, there are significant network effects that can be realized by particularly indexing on infill. So for example, if there's more people who live in the interior, the core of the Bay Area, that means fewer people living in the Central Valley sprawl, fewer people who have to transport themselves in via car for the most part. So there's a significant emissions reductions there that might not be captured by a purely geographical reporting mechanism. And there's a project out of the University of California, Berkeley that tries to quantify this called coolclimate.berkeley.edu. I would encourage you to check that out to see if you take a more holistic view of emissions counting and inventorying what Millbrae could be capable of achieving with local jurisdictional policy. On the subject of reach codes, it seems like based on what the council members have said that you all are considering, potentially considering or are considering it. One thing I would say about that is that if you follow the work of Bruce Nilles at the Rocky Mountain Institute, natural gas is like is the biggest source of carbon emissions now, and a third of it comes from commercial and residential buildings. So unless we tackle natural gas, we're not going to solve this problem. And it's a huge public health issue as well. On the subject of mandates versus incentives, this is something that I know the clean tech industry is thinking a lot about, and it just doesn't seem like we can achieve emissions reductions quickly enough without mandates. And like they're on page on page 41 of the report, it talks about a voluntary thing program that Millbrae participated in, and only 28 homeowners and contractors participated, and 8 homeowners in this voluntary program. So it just doesn't seem like you scale this out without some kind of mandate. So I'm out of time anyway, so thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chan. Okay, any final comments from the council? Okay, well, this is just an informational item, so no action is needed on this, but I'm sure there's been plenty of input, and we look forward to having this come back to us in the coming months.
Just one thing, Shelley, I know I've been hard on you. I'm very excited about this, truly, truly. But you and I work in the same field, and so I just have so many high hopes. And and for the public, if anyone is watching, this is not just something the city of Millbrae is going to do. It is something our businesses are going to do, and each of us as individuals are going to do. It's a team effort here, guys, and it's serious. And as Councilman Lee said, our children are very concerned. I spoke to some Webelos a couple of months ago, and they said, why can't we have meatless Mondays? Because that teaches you that foods all have greenhouse gases. So we have amazing children in town, and we need to make sure that we're giving them the framework to take their ideas forward. Because, frankly, Peninsula Hospital refused to do meatless Mondays. So let's sick the kids on them.
Yeah, as I walked here down Library Avenue to this meeting, I looked out at Millbrae Square and the 24-hour fitness building and living spaces and all the flat roofs without solar panels.
Perfect for DG.
Just thinking of how many panels we can have up there and how much more efficient we could be. So I think we need to leverage as many of these incentives and mandates as possible to get us to reach our goals. Okay, thank you. All right, we will move ahead to council comments, and let's start with Councilman Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a kind of a busy month. One of the biggest issues, and I think, and I welcome Councilmember Pappen to fill in if I miss anything, but ABAG and MTC are going through the Bay Area Plan 5050, Plan Bay Area 2050, and looking at different options on how we want to approach it. And they're also, so that plan is basically kind of a blueprint on how to plan the Bay Area for success, all 110 cities. And so there's an opportunity for you to get involved. And I think one of the issues, too, was the seamless transportation thing that we just approved last meeting, I believe. And that's one of the issues that a lot of cities are trying to get on board with, too. And the seamless transportation thing is try to make it so then the you can easily buy a bus ticket, and you don't have to do different types of systems. And one of the things I brought up was trying to make a seamless timeline too, time schedule, so then you don't have to wait a half an hour between catching a ride, or if you miss Caltrain by 2 minutes because your train arrived 2 minutes later, so that sort of thing. Let's see. And the other thing is at the what's the congestion management environmental quality committee of CCAG, which is the County and City of Association of Governments, which is the equivalent of the counties of ABAG. They talked about approving a project to gather all the data, all the transportation data of cars movement in the San Mateo County, so we can track how cars are moving through our cities as well as the freeways. Yeah, well, we're recommending the CCAG to approve it, right? Oh yeah, City of Millbrae signed up for this project. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get all the other cities and the counties to sign into this project to lower the cost overall. So that's a good project. And also, I believe that a lot of cities are working on submitting applications or have submitted applications for PDAs. What was that? PDA? I'm drawing blank. Public development. Priority development areas, yes. So those are places like transits, building houses near transit, housing near transit, and that sort of thing. So of course, Millbrae has one of the largest PDAs, which means that we ought to get more love, but we don't get enough love. So, and that's one of the projects that we're working on in Millbrae, is trying to get moving along those housing projects, and we're working staff's working very hard, and I thank staff and knowledge staff and our city attorney and for working very hard to try to get those housing built, despite we're not getting the cooperations we would like to get from our transit agents to provide the access to certain properties that we want. What else was there? I think I'm going to, there is we're working on a video that's spearheaded by the city manager to put out a video about the census. So we're trying to try to explain the census and try to get people to get involved with the census. And of course, it's opportunity. Also, this is voting season, so you should be able to drop off your ballots. You could drop it off at City Hall. You can just drop it off in the mail. You don't have to put a stamp on it. It's just, everybody should participate, because when you vote, people pay attention, and also you get more, you can advocate better for your services that you want.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Oliva?
Okay, so with regard to the Sheriff's Activity League, I'm happy to announce that Green Hills will be sponsoring the sheriffs and the youth to be playing on the private golf course. And I know that there's a couple of volunteers from both the club and a course from Sal that'll be participating with that. It was quite a success last year, and I was very happy to participate in getting that. Thank you, City Manager, for helping out with that. And they're really excited, super, super excited to be out there. I also went to the Seniors Advisory Committee, and they were very interested in our goal seminar or goal workshop that we had, and they had a very legitimate question that I did not have the answer to, and that was, how can and when will we start working on the general plan that's so important? So how could they participate, and when will that be? So maybe we can get that back to them sooner than later. And then I have to say, I know that probably 80% of the calls that come in as a council person member are from the public, and it's regards to parking. And I just want to share an experience that I had in my own house the other day. As I was leaving to go to work, there was a beautiful young couple with 2 suitcases standing in front of my neighbor's house. And as I went to go look at who they were, an Uber driver drove up, or a Lyft, whatever. I'm using Uber for the sake of conversation. And they were going to park their car there and just take off to the airport. So I know that the city's working on it, but we really have to get that bull by the horns there. So with that being said, I'll finish the comments and I'll say happy birthday to Councilmember Pappen tomorrow.
Okay, Vice Mayor Schneider.
I don't know if anybody who lives out in Marina Vista has noticed all of these holes that have appeared in Monterey Park. So I want to say thank you for Public Works for digging all those holes. This is our attempt to reuse the magnolia trees from the BART parking lot. And I'm not exactly sure when they're going to be planted, but hopefully we will notify the community there so they know. I drove through it today to look at the holes and look at other all the other agencies that own land out there and that don't maintain the land very well. So hopefully we will be giving a little more love to Bayside Manor and a little more love to Marina Vista, but I'm really excited about those magnolia trees. This weekend I'm attending the UC Davis airplane noise conference in San Diego. I am being sent as the representative from San Francisco Noise Airport Roundtable. I'll be taking a specific class on the Federal Aviation Administration's viewpoint of how to do environmental impact reviews. SFO is going to go through yet another expansion, and their last expansion did no mitigations for any changes that they did out there, which have drastically increased the amount of noise many of us are experiencing. So I'm looking forward to that, learning more about different monitoring devices and things there. This is going to sound a little bit weird. Oh, a shout out to Community Enhancement. Yesterday they met to start working out the concept of Adopt-a-Spot. I know the city manager and I have talked about Adopt-a-Spot, but basically it'll be locating areas around the city that the community, that bugs the community, that they might want to join together and as a group work on. But that should be coming forward, but SEAC began working on that. I didn't go to their last meeting because we had our goal setting, but I'm glad to know that they have broken up into subcommittees and are working forward on a number of projects. In fact, on Thursday, SEAC and Cultural Arts and myself, we're going to walk Broadway and Park and El Camino looking for potential public art opportunities. Canvases, basically. Not anything near, but just to put them on a list and say, someday we can do something here if all the pieces come together. We had a meeting with the city manager, with Park and Public Works last week, talking about a potential activity for the 4th of July. We have members of Cultural Arts. They have an event subcommittee. They would like to do a 4th of July parade. And city manager, please correct me, the result of that meeting was to reach out to the community groups and see which community groups might take the lead. So we will be approaching the Lions in March to see if they would take a lead and try to come up with a very small town, kids on bicycles, people with dogs, nothing highbrow, just fun. Recreation is working on a parade route that probably, well, I don't want to, there's too much in the piece, but as soon as we figure out if there's enough there, it will come to City Council. And I also want to say thank you to sustainability staff. Earth Day this year, typically Earth Day is in April. Earth Day is in April, but because of the Progress Seminar, our Earth Day for Millbrae is going to be Saturday, May 3rd, so that we can all attend and still get to go to Progress Seminar. So I'm very grateful for that. And I have a couple of questions, just like Councilwoman Oliva brought up. I would love to get an update of how we're doing on the traffic calming project and the BID project. I have a lot of people asking me about BID. If we could just get an update, where are we on that, some timelines on that. And at our next council meeting, if you are a group that might like to participate on the 4th of July, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at aschneider@ci.millbrae.ca.gov or call me. Drop me a note on Nextdoor. I will read it eventually. And Cultural Arts would like a better presence on the website. We have a lot. They have a lot of stuff to put up there, some great stuff. So, and I'll let you talk about the Japanese government.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Pappen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We were briefed on the San Mateo County Safe Routes to School program, and they've been doing some amazing programs here. Regrettably, the schools in Millbrae did not participate in the questionnaire, but we do have some local results that I will share with the city, and hopefully you can find it. And the survey is just to let the parents know what their concerns are as people are we're trying to encourage people to walk to school and safer routes and all that stuff. So I think we can still participate in some of these programs. They are assisting us with working with the school district, so it's a wonderful program. In addition, as Councilmember Lee represented, the Plan Bay Area 2050 blueprint is in the works, but still a work in progress. So where our city voted to support the principles of seamless Bay Area, Alameda County joined in, Santa Clara County joined in, but this strategy blueprint that MTC is offering still needs some greater definition there. Also, I've spoken with Assembly Member Chu and Mullen as to really putting some teeth into those seamless aspects. We have 27 transit agencies, none of whom seem to be working for the overall benefit of the riders. And so making them achieve accountability is important. As was also noted, the Congestion Management Group and the Council Cities and CCAG, Association of Governments, is proposing various projects, which they will have on the website. This county has been given, how many billion? $3 billion to divide up between us all as to various projects, and those are posted here. Many of them are in the works, design phase, or construction, but these are the big projects of our transportation needs throughout. Millbrae has several on here, which we probably need to talk about as a council, because I don't think staff quite shared some of those with us. So this is the blueprint that's offered for those billions of dollars coming to San Mateo County. One of the big projects which a lot of people are pushing is the other crossing there. I'm drawing a blank.
Dumbarton Bridge.
Dumbarton, thank you. The Dumbarton rail crossing, which seems to be another big project heading our way. I would like to emphasize Neighborhood Watch in watching out for your neighbors. February 19th at 2:40 in the morning, somebody was cruising my street. Somebody got out and was checking all the cars to see what cars were left open. Thankfully, no cars were left open, so applauding my neighbors, and no windows were broken. But if you have cameras, talk to your neighbors, alert them. My neighbor was alerted by their Ring program. So we had a resident say, wouldn't it be great if all the residents had the Ring doorknobs or doorbells? We can work together on this. We have to watch out for one another. So please get to know your neighbors and watch out for each other. Again, that was 2:40 in the morning. But we can keep ourselves safe if we do stay concerned, and just call if anything suspicious happens. Regrettably, I did not know of this till like 3 days after the fact, but the cameras still caught a look as to what's happening late at night. So I think that's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. The Vice Mayor had mentioned that we welcomed a delegation from Japan a couple weeks ago that came to the Millbrae Library and gave a presentation. It was a wonderful event. There were 3 members of the panel, and they had traveled around. They'd been to Denver and then to Sacramento, and then were going to the Los Angeles area after the stop here in the Bay Area. But they talked about some very interesting topics, including gender representation and trying to fix the gender gap in Japan, as well as using waste, human waste and bio-waste to improve drought tolerance in plants and in agriculture, and I thought that was fascinating, as well as cancer research. And fortunately, they decided to stop and present here in Millbrae. So I'd like to thank Kathleen Kimura for her help in setting that up. We also had a new Consul General, Toru Maeda, who was in his, I believe, third day on the job, but he came and joined us for that event. Hopefully we gave a good impression of Millbrae, and hopefully they will include us again, because they do several delegations. This program, it's called Walk in America, Talk on Japan, and they have several delegations throughout the year, and they have visited, I think, 38 states in the United States and also in Canada as well. So hopefully they will return to Millbrae again at some point. I attended the commute.org board meeting last week. There was a presentation on the 101 Alemany project in San Francisco, which will cause significant delays on 101. That will be in July. They are taking down the whole, basically the whole freeway and rebuilding it at 101 in Alemany. And basically the traffic will be diverted onto a freeway off-ramp at, I believe, at Cesar Chavez, and then an on-ramp back on to 101. So it will all go down to two lanes in each direction. So they are trying to get people to take public transit. I would recommend those of us in Millbrae who drive to San Francisco each day to explore mode shifts. Electric cars do not reduce congestion. That is a point. They had suggested, they had mentioned that during the day, when BART trains are, many of the BART trains are only 4 cars midday, so they will be having lengthened trains. I suggested that we could use some more service as well, more frequent than every 15 minutes. That is not particularly convenient service. And also mentioned the challenges that we will be having with our BART station losing 600 spaces. 300 have already been lost, and I don't know if the 600 will be before July or not, but a lot more people need to take BART, and there will be fewer places to park. So I hope everyone plans accordingly. That will be for about, I think, a 10-day period in mid-July. Let's see. I also attended the Sister Cities Commission meeting last night. The commission voted to move forward with a friendship city relationship with Ramallah, Palestine. There was a large group from Ramallah that both natives of Ramallah as well as first generation, second generation Americans who were born here that
Millbrae
had
residents.
Sorry?
Millbrae residents.
Millbrae residents, yeah, that still had ties with Ramallah. Apparently there are large conventions that are held each year with thousands of people that come. I think they've been having it at the Hyatt in Burlingame, and they also have had festivals, Palestinian festivals. I think they said 11,000 people attended the last festival in Foster City. So there were some members of the commission saying, well, that's wonderful that you have, this large group. None of us had known about you before you showed up here, and apparently the city council in Ramallah had already voted to accept Millbrae as a sister city before any of us had heard about them. So that should be coming forward next month to the council to approve the Friendship City Agreement. If that goes forward, if that is successful, it eventually could become a sister city.
It's nice to be wanted.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Make friends.
Make friends.
Yeah. About 10 miles from Jerusalem and Palestine.
Mr. Mayor, before you go on, how long did they say that construction is going to be happening? How long the duration?
I believe it is about 10 days or so.
Just 10 days?
Yeah, it was, I could be wrong, but that's what I recall hearing, and maybe we can include some information about that on our website.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The 101 Alemany project, there is a website and a video, a very fancy video that they showed us, showing what the traffic patterns will look like during that construction, but it's a pretty significant project that's going on there. Yes. Okay, and we will be closing the meeting tonight in honor of, in memory of Antonio Gonzalez. He is the father of Millbrae accounting technician Amalia Pena. And with that, we'll be closing the meeting, and we will be back again.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
One more item. I want to let everybody know that there's a lot of concern about the COVID-19 virus, the Wuhan, commonly known as the Wuhan virus.
Coronavirus?
Yeah, the coronavirus. It is not. It's been reported that a lot of cities have already started their emergency some responses, and that's typical of what cities do. They just get ready, have funding ready, but there is no epidemic at this moment. And they're saying that it's a very little risk of it, right now. I'm not saying that it may not happen, but right now it's very, very low. And so I think and it's impacting our businesses here. That's why I'm mentioning it. It's impacting a lot of businesses, and our businesses are very stressed. So I just want to stress to people that the best thing you could do is wash your hands. And wash it very frequently. Mask might help a little bit, but it's not as good as washing your hands. So I just want people not to be fearful and not to panic. It is not. In fact, 80% of the people infected, it's like a cold. So as long as you go seek treatment right away, I don't think right now it's a huge issue. But I just want to make sure people know not to be spreading rumors and not to be panicking.
And probably not to be traveling to Wuhan anytime soon.
Yeah. And can we reiterate that it's flu season, and actually at this point in time, this may not be true very soon, but more people are dying of the flu in this country, so please, if you haven't yet, get a flu shot.
Wash your hands.
They're still available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and we will adjourn, and we will be back again in a couple weeks. So thank you, and have a good night.